All right, what's up, you guys? It's your boy Jake, your favorite real estate investor. Gonna do a quick little unannounced live, and if you know me, by quick, I mean I'm probably gonna go the maximum amount of time allotted by Instagram. But I wanna get in, I wanna talk more about OPM, tell you about the mentorship group, of course, but this one's gonna be kind of a more unique little live here. Initially, what's going on, you guys? Well, first off, can you guys hear me? I'm gonna let you guys jump on. I don't know what I'm doing trying to jump right into things. How are you? Welcome. It's your boy Jake, your favorite investor. We're going to talk about other people's money. Specifically, we are going to piggyback on the presentation I did yesterday, just regarding the basic numbers you need to know in order to flip a house, especially if you're going to use OPM. Okay? Give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me okay. Apparently, the microphone got disconnected yesterday, and so you just heard just echoes from the dome. Give me a thumbs up or a yes if you guys can hear me loud and clear. How long you been doing this? 7.5 years. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, cool. All right, you guys. So, yeah, come on in. So yesterday we talked about the basic numbers that anyone needs to know in order to flip a house. The basic numbers that, hundreds of flips into this game, right? I'm not at 1,000 yet, but hundreds, over 800 flips into this game. I still run these numbers the same way that you would need to run them if it's your first flip, okay? It's still the same way I need to look at the deal, the same perspective that I need to look at the deal from with, the money that's coming out of it, the money being put into it, what the profit looks like. I mean, it's the same thing regardless of whether you're brand new or you're an old dog like me, an old 34-year-old dog. Now, it's the same numbers if you're a multi-millionaire and you have a bunch of cash you want to put in the deal. It's the same numbers that you need to look at if you have 30, 40, 50 grand that you want to put into a deal. It's also the same numbers that you need to look at and make sure are on point if you have $0 to put into a deal. Yes, $0. You can do this business with $0 of your own money into the deal, and you can do this with the entire amount of money into the deal. So, what was I doing? What did you do before real estate investing? I worked for a tech company. I was a sales guy, and I was like the worst sales guy ever. And then right after that, that company got bought out, and they offered me less money, right, a lower salary. And so, but I saw all my bosses. It was a small company. I saw my bosses get this fat payout when they got acquired. And me, the little guy was working for someone else's dream. No problem with that, but I learned so much that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I thought I could do it. I started a business, and I quickly failed. I lost all my money, and that's when I got into real estate investing, when I was like dead broke, super humiliated, thought that I didn't know what I was going to do, if I was going to have to go back in and put my tail between my legs and go in and ask for a job back. But real estate investing changed and saved my life. So that's what I was doing. So what's going on? So your board is backwards to us viewers, brother. So one thing that I typically do, and you went ahead and that's a perfect transition. I don't write backwards, right? So because this is mirrored, because I'm looking at you guys, you see everything backwards here. It's just the way it goes. In order for me to interact with you, I've got to do that. Also, if it was the other way and I couldn't see the screen, I wouldn't know if I got interrupted or if the live went out or whatever. So you just got to listen to this. But if you see my stories, you can swipe up. Some of them I'll upload to YouTube. I'll flip them around so you see them the regular way. And I'll store them like either on my website or on YouTube, and you guys can watch those later on. But just follow along. I like to draw a lot of visuals. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, he knows it's backwards. So what I'm going to say, because you called me out, now we're on the same team. We're in the same crew. It's inevitable every time. I'll be, midway through this, somebody will jump in and they'll call me out for it. Usually they're not too kind. They're like, hey, bro, you freaking idiot, man. You know your stuff's backwards. Please, especially if I can't defend myself or like address it, just let him know. He knows it's backwards. We'll get it uploaded and flipped around later on. Just keep your eye on my stories and posts and all that stuff. I'll let you know when it's up there. All right, cool. So, I had this real interesting idea with the live that I wanted to do today. It was something that kind of made me nervous too. It's something I haven't done before. So I have a friend. She goes to my church. Her and her husband go to my church. And she had hit me up. She said, Jake, do you want to sit down and meet? I've got some money and I want to learn more about investing. Now, I didn't know necessarily what she wanted to do. And Stacy, what's up? I know you're going to watch this later. She was initially going to get on this live and have me essentially put a presentation on for her and, ideally convert somebody from not being a real estate investor to somebody that's willing to put money as a private lender into the investing space. Unfortunately, our schedules both got thrown off crazily. I was going to meet her at the coffee shop, and then swim class came on for my kids. Then a kid crapped in the pool, and so they canceled swim class. So I'm here and I have time, but she came home and there was ants all over her house. So Stacy, I'm sorry you're dealing with that. I would much rather be on this live than dealing with ants or dealing with a poopy pool because someone else cleans that. So here we are, right? So here we are about to talk about other people's money. I'm going to put a little bit different of a spin on it to talk to her. I'm kind of partially recording this for her so she can understand the benefits to a lender, bringing money into the game, the real estate game, what other people's money looks like, and also educating you guys based on the structure that we started yesterday, the basic numbers of a deal, how OPM and other people's money works. All right? Does that sound cool? Does that sound fair? Give me a yes. Give me a yes if that makes sense, because I'm kind of freestyling this one. I don't really have notes or anything. I just figured I'd get on. I thought I was going to be talking with her, and that made me a little bit nervous. Probably made her a little bit nervous too, but it's all good. Perfect. All right, yeah, we had a hell of a day today. I'm behind. We had a doctor's appointment for my wife. She's pregnant. We have a little girl coming in February. Everything's good, but there was like a gas leak here in Old Town Temecula where I work, and everything was evacuated, so I've been running all over the place. It's been fun, though. Like, I can work from anywhere doing what I do. So yesterday, as a recap, and I know this is backwards, I apologize for it, you guys, but the way that we look at a flip, there's some basic numbers that everybody needs to know. And Stacy, if you're watching this, right, like anytime someone's going to flip a house, you need to know what the property's worth, the end number, what it's worth after all the repairs are said and done. Essentially, what a house would appraise for when you're selling it on the open market. Hey, Lotto Ticket Los! That's my boy right there. Lotto Ticket Los made 30 G's off of a Facebook or an Instagram live that was like 6 months ago, man. What's up, man? I appreciate it. Thank you, dude. I've been watching your stuff. Good work. I love what you're doing. I think you're buying up the block out there, right? I like it, man. So anytime we look at a deal, it's important that the most accurate thing we need to do, the number that we live and die by, right, is the after repair value, okay? The resale value, the number that we're going to be able to resell it for after everything's said and done, okay? There's a specific process of analyzing everything that's sold in the neighborhood recently to get data on the neighborhood so we know that our house would follow that trend. We're not going to say, oh, well, everything in the neighborhood sold for $300,000, but we're going to put real nice appliances in it so our house will sell for $325,000. That's shooting yourself in the foot. That's irresponsible money. That's doing something based on emotion and speculation, being an interior designer and trying to move houses as an interior designer rather than as a scientist, right? We want to just go in, analyze the number, analyze the trends, and model the trends that are working. That's the safest way for you to make money. That's the surest bet. Now, there's risk in everything, but that's the best way to manage risk. Now, can you make money being an interior designer and just hoping that you go in there and put like the nicest stuff, like stuff that's, you spend $10,000 on appliances where the rest of the neighborhood spending, $1,500 or $2,000 on the appliances, and just hoping that some multi-millionaire says, I like that house so much that I'm going to come in here and I'm going to buy that cash. I don't care if I'm overpaying for it. Yeah, hey, that could happen. That's happened to me before, but I'm not trying, if I'm putting my money or other people's money into a flip, I'm not trying to base it on speculation, right? I'm not trying to base it on the exception to the rule. I'm basing it off of what's going to happen 99% of the time, which is someone's getting a bank loan, and the bank is going to make sure that the loan they're giving to the new buyer isn't overpaying for property. And this kind of ties into the OPM thing too as well, because the bank, right, for the new buyer, if we're going to sell this house for $300,000, okay, the bank is telling the new buyer, they're telling them like, look, we'll lend this money to you, but we have a lien on the property. A lien is when they have the ability to foreclose on it. Now, they don't want a property, their collateral. If they're giving you the loan, they don't want you overpaying for a property, because in a worst case scenario, if they were to give you a loan for $325,000 on a house that's worth $300,000, and you did something dumb, or the borrower, something happened, so someone passed away, and the bank has to take it over, well, they have $300,000, if they've given you a loan that's more than the property's worth, they're going to have collateral that's worth less than the loan. That's what it means to be underwater, right? So they want to stay safe. They will not lend on a property that somebody's overpaying for, okay? It's staying safe. That's part of the reason why this is the most important number for us. It's a few different ways. First off, we want to know if we renovate a house, we want to know what it's worth on the market to 99.9% of the prospective buyers, not the multi-millionaire that's going to go and spend a ton of money on something, right? We want to make sure that we are, putting the numbers correctly, okay? So we start with the end in mind, and if I'm going to flip a house, I know that I'm not a real estate agent. I flip houses all over the country, right? So I'm going to hire an agent in the local market to list the property, do the open houses, negotiate the deal on my behalf, make sure everything's legal, make sure everything's safe, make sure they're vetting the new buyer, make sure they negotiate with the new buyer, not as me because I'll get emotional or pissed off. They're going to make sure they keep the facts first, make sure that I'm protected. They put a lot of time into doing that. Typically, if you're selling a property, the seller, when the funds come in, right, from the new buyer, if someone's paying us $300K, of that, there's 5% or 6% that gets chopped up between the two agents. So essentially the seller pays both agents, right? We went over this yesterday. So 5% in realtor commissions, REC, and another about 1.5% of the transaction amount comes off the top essentially in closing costs, which is like a title or escrow company, making sure everything's legal, everything transfers from one person's hands to the other person's hands. It's not dirty money, everything's legit, legal, everybody's happy, everybody's legally protected, okay? This stuff is not dirty money. This stuff is very clean, it's very legal, and so that's what we're kind of going through, because we don't want to do something that's shady or, kind of just trading paper, someone signing a deed over to you without making sure taxes are paid or anything like that. We want to make sure everything's clean because we're here to protect ourselves and protect our lenders. When you're looking at other people's money, the lender gets paid first, and then whatever's left on top is cream for us. We don't get paid if we put our lender in a position to not make money, okay? To not get paid out in full. Keep that in mind. So at the end of the day, we begin with the end in mind, what it can resell for. We subtract realtor costs, we subtract closing costs, and we have an amount of revenue that comes out. So if we were to sell this house for $300,000, we got about approximately 280 grand coming into our pocket in this hypothetical situation. Now this property, I'm purchasing it for this is all hypothetical, but hypothetically we're purchasing it for 200 grand, putting 20 grand in rehab into it, about $2,000 in like utilities, holding costs, HOA fees, that type of stuff. And then also another approximately $3,000, about 1.5% in closing costs to make sure when we buy the property, everything's legal. We're not buying it with anybody else's drama. Everything's paid off, transferred to us legally. Now that is very, very important. So all in all, these are the basic numbers of a flip. We put $25,000 into the house, we flip it, or $225 into the house, we flip it, it's worth 300 grand. If we sell it on the open market with realtors, there's realtor commissions and closing costs, so we pull out $281. That's $56,000, of pure profit if we were to use our own money going into the deal that is in this deal, right? So this is a good deal. Now, I can either move forward with it. I'll get out of the way here. I know it's backwards, but I can move forward with this deal, right? I can do it with my own cash, right? If I have the cash, or if I'm in a position where I have funds available to invest into a deal. If you have that, great. If not, that does not mean you're out of the game. But we're looking at this the same way. So if I was to put 225 in, I would make 56 grand on top of that 6-month project. That's a great return. Okay. Now, here's where I'm going to try to connect the dots here. Now, I want this to be an OPM presentation, talking to all of you as prospective borrowers of OPM, but I'm also going to tailor this to Stacy. I don't know if you're on this, you may be on this, but Stacy, we're supposed to have coffee today, shit hit the fan for both of us, so I'm going to tailor this to show her what it's like from the lender's standpoint as well, okay? So remember, we're putting 225 into this deal, and let's see how much of the, okay, you can see this, putting 225 into the deal, pulling 281 out of the deal. So, haven't done this in a while, but this is what we're going to do. This is the cup of water. A lot of you guys that are old school from when I had 800 followers, a few months ago, you guys know about this one because I used to do this one all the time. Sometimes we've done this with beer, sometimes we've done this with whiskey. I like beer because there's foam on the top, and you'll see what I mean by that. I think with this one, we're just going to do water. We're going to do blue water and red water. Blue water is no sharks, there's no blood in the water, this is pure water. This is going to represent profit. Water with red in it, there's blood in the water. That means there's expenses that are coming out of it, okay? Bear with me here. You'll see what I mean. So this cup of water filled up to the top is representing this house, okay? Filled up to the very top. And this, you guys, you might think that I'm kind of corny for doing this, but this is how I learn best. I'm a visual learner. And so let's see here. So this is kind of connected the dots for a lot of people that have done this, especially the folks like Lotto Ticket Los over there, who's been around since the beginning, okay? So this cup of water filled up to the very top, okay, is the full potential of the house, okay? When everything's said and done, when we put all of our, we buy the property, we put renovation costs into it, we make it look nice and perfect. We've held it for a few months. Let me get this even closer for you guys. We've held it for a few months. We've had closing, we put in utilities, like we've had to pay power, sewer, water while it's vacant. We paid vacant property insurance and stuff like that. All the way up to the top, it's worth $300K, all right? So we're gonna put a 300 right here. And by the way, again, this stuff is all backwards and it's not to scale, okay? But we're gonna give you a good visual. So all the way up to the top, this thing is worth 300K. If you try to get more money out of it, 99.9% of the time, it's going to overflow, and it's potential that's not truly captured in the project, because if somebody tries to pay $325, the bank's going to put them in check real quick, say, dude, we're not going to give you a loan for any more than it's worth. It's worth $300K. This is pretty much what you have to expect to get from a property, okay? Now, if we're selling it for $300K and it's on the open market, right? Realtors are getting paid that 5%, right? In this case, realtors are going to get paid right here, let's say it's not to scale, but off the top, right, this is out of the money that the 300 grand that comes in, the realtors get paid. It's not coming out of our pocket. It is an expense, but it's just, it's not something that we have to figure out a way to come up with up front. Realtors get paid only if the deal closes. Now, in addition to that, there's another 4 grand approximately, okay, in closing costs that comes off the top. I like to do this with beer because there's foam on the top, and I like to drink beer. Not a ton, but I like my beer, okay? So right here, we're looking at this deal, okay? Now, we've got this beautiful blue water. I'm not a blood, I'm not a crip, right? I'm just trying to give you a good portrayal of what's going on. But the blue water is profit, okay? There's no sharks or blood in that water. This contaminated water up here, where you see that there's blood messing up the water here, this is taking away from profit. So all of a sudden, off the top, we have sharks in the water that are taking some of our profits, right, in the tune of about 19 grand. So realistically, up to here, we're at 281, okay? This is our visual taking away the approximately $19,000 of fees, okay? Now, on the other side of the equation, we have the 225 grand that we have to put into the deal. We have 200 grand to purchase the house, 20 grand to renovate the house, $2,000 to hold the house, and about $3,000 to close on the house, okay? So 225 total that we're putting into the deal. Now, this is money that we do have to come up with, okay? This is money that it has to come out of our pocket. Contractors typically don't work for free. They're not saying, you could pay me when you sell the house. They want to get paid every week, or sometimes they want to get paid in advance. We say no to that. You guys know what I mean when you're experienced. But, like the utility companies, they're not saying, oh, you can pay us the cable bill, or not the cable bill, but like the gas and electric bill later on when you sell the house. They need to be paid now. When we buy the house, they're not saying, oh, just give us the money later on once you sell it. I mean, sometimes you can convince somebody to do that, but it's not very often, right? Usually if you buy the house, the seller that sells you the house needs to get paid now, okay? So that stuff is coming out of pocket now. So we're going to come in from the bottom, and right about here, again, this is not to scale. Okay, all of this is also contaminated water. There's blood in the water, okay? Lotto ticket los. Please don't beat me up for talking about red being contaminated water. You know what I mean? We're all good. This is just for depiction purposes, okay? So we got blood in the water here and blood in the water here, but there's still, and here, let me make sure I put the 225 right here, okay? So 225 is this point right here. Here's the money we put into it. Here's the expenses that come off the top as well that are expenses, but they come out of the money that we get from the new buyer, okay? Now this right here, this beautiful blue clear water in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right? This is our profit. And, the way that it looks right here, this is if we put our own money into the deal. There's 56 grand that's not contaminated by the bloody water here, not contaminated by the bloody water here. There's 56, right? The difference between 225 and 281, okay? Are you guys following me so far? Hopefully we're good. All right, you're using the wrong camera. Well, you're using the wrong camera. You need to trick your mind to be looking at this backwards, right? You should be watching this in a mirror. I don't know how to use this on my iPhone 7. My iPhone 7 is all cracked and everything. But are you guys following me so far what we're doing with, okay, cool. I got at least a couple of thumbs up here. So this is the water. And Stacy, as the lender, this is important for you to understand, okay? Because you need to see that without lender fees and without the costs that you bring in as the lender, you need to see that in its purest form, this deal, this house flip, has enough blue water for everybody to stay hydrated, I guess, right? Everybody, we're all thirsty, and this is enough for everybody to get a drink, okay? I like what I said right there. Somebody quote me on that. Put a quote card up. By the way, you guys, if you like what we're doing so far, there's a link in my bio, theflipsecrets.com/mentor. The mentorship group is open. There's a limited number of seats that we're putting out there. It's not free. It's not for everyone. It is for action takers, but we go deep in the entire business, not just scratching the surface with some of this stuff. Check that out if that's something you are interested in. But again, I would just want people that are willing to take action, not just people that learn. I want people that learn and apply, okay? Now, going back to this, I'm an opportunist. What can I say? So we have a pure deal here, right, where you put $225 in, you get $281 out, right? We have $56,000 of pure profit, okay? Now, when you don't have the money to get into a deal, like me, when I first got into this game, I didn't have the money to do this, okay? I was broke and in debt to my girlfriend at that, right? She had lent me 10 grand, and I opened up all sorts of credit cards to be able to put the other 5 grand to go to a 2-day seminar where they said, buy low, sell high, here's how you write an offer, right? I went out there and applied what I learned though, and it was enough to get me into the game, okay? 15 grand in a seminar, so I was 15 grand in debt. I had like $800 to my name, and I was scared. It didn't feel right. I knew that real estate was something for me, but I felt like the timing was off, but I had no option. In my mind, I was in a situation where I had to do this, okay? I had to figure this out, and I had to learn from people that knew how to do this. So I figured out a way. I got creative. If you don't have money, you just got to get creative and put yourself out there. And if somebody says no, that's not the end of the world. That just means you're one no closer to a yes, all right? That's cliche, I know, but I truly believe that. That's how I got my start. That's how I've rebounded from every failure I've ever been through when it comes to this game, okay? So when you're bringing a lender in, right, the lender obviously isn't going to, it's not a charity. They're not going to say, hey, look, man, Jake, take 225 grand, just pay me back whenever. It's all good. I just want to give this to you. You got a good personality. I love your Flip Secrets t-shirt. You're wearing the money green today. So, we're just going to hook you up, okay? Don't work like that, right? I wish it worked like that. If it did work like that, I'd be making a lot more money, okay? But it's not like that. What happens is somebody comes in and covers this amount or a portion of this amount, and we pay them for their time, right? So when we buy a house, right? When we first buy this house at 200 grand, usually the property's beat to shit, right? It's a beat up property, excuse my language. So if the house is beat up, it's considered higher risk, okay? We still need to put 20 grand in or whatever it is, whatever the situational rehab budget is. We still need to put that into the house in order to flip it and make it worth what its future potential is. Now, this is still an important number, but when somebody first gives the money, right, the very first day that you own the property, while it still beats to crap, it's higher risk. And the longer you go with it, the more rehab you do to it, the closer you get to this being a full, completely flipped house, the more the property is worth, the lower the risk is. Typically, the lender that gives you the money, they hold on to the rehab fees and they release it to your contractor as work is completed, okay? So everybody stays one step ahead of the game. The lenders realistically are the ones that are keeping tabs on the contractor doing their work right and not ripping you off, okay? It's a big aspect of this business. I see a lot of people say, oh no, I'll do it myself. A contractor says, well, give me 50% of the rehab costs up front. They give them 50%, like $40,000 budget. They give the contractor 20 grand. I'm not saying every contractor's like this, okay? So if you guys are contractors, don't be super pissed at me. Just be kind of pissed at me, right? If you're an investor and you give somebody half the budget, you give them 20 grand up front, they all of a sudden are in control of the project. I've seen this happen. This happens with my neighbors. This happens all the time. They'll do a little bit of work. They'll say, okay, we demoed the whole house. Everything's demolished. We're 50% done. Give us more money up front. And then you're like, that's not 50% done. You worked on the house for 3 days. They're like, well, no, we've worked 20 grand worth. You owe us more money. And then all of a sudden you're in a situation where a contractor's in control and they can push you around. Now, this doesn't happen every time, okay? It's happened to me before. It's happened to a lot of people before. And it's something you need to be prepared for and protect yourself for and protect your lender for, right? So, Stacy, if you're watching this, you need to understand that if somebody is doing a real estate deal, and it depends on how much money you're putting. Actually, we won't even get into that part yet because we're going to talk about the different structures of loans, okay? So if you're in this deal, okay, and you bring in a lender, one lender may say, I'll give you 225 grand, but you have to pay me, 50% $1,500 interest payment every month until you sell the house, okay? I don't know what that percentage is, but let's say 1,500 or 1,800 bucks. If you're holding the house for a projected 6 months, because you got to do the rehab, you got to put it on the market, there's escrow with the new buyer, let's say it's 6 months. 1,500 bucks at 6 months is like 10 grand, okay? 1,800 bucks at 6 months is like 10 grand of interest. Now, if you have 10 grand, you can pay that over the course of the 6 months to the lender, and you're only into the deal for 10 grand. You make 10 grand less of profit, right? So some of that profit is getting eaten up. So, some of the blue ocean here gets a little bit smaller because we have new expenses that we have to do. But there's still, if we put 10 grand into lender fees, you'd have 46 grand left over for you, the borrower, okay? But a lot of lenders, and this is where people get really hung up on, right? A lot of lenders, anybody can get a lender on any deal, but a lot of lenders will say, look, this property is worth 300. You know what? We'll give you, and you need 225 total, but you know what, Jake? We'll give you $200,000, okay? If a lender gives me 2 grand, that means I need to come up with the additional 25 to make this whole deal happen. Plus, I'm probably going to have to pay that lender interest payments for 6 months, okay? So if, Stacy, I don't know how much money you're working with, but if you're a lender and you're like, look, I got 200, 300, 400 grand, you could realistically fund a whole deal. And you can negotiate with the borrower whether you want to take a profit share, whether you want a monthly interest payment. Either way, you have a lien on the house. And if they don't pay you, or they do something weird or dumb, or they don't get back to you, or they don't do something that you've agreed to in your contract, you can foreclose on the house. And as long as those initial numbers are right, and you stay stay ahead of the curve as far as not paying contractors up front for work they haven't done, you can take over where they left off. And a lot of times that's a lot more profitable situation if you foreclose. You're protected by a lien, or in California we call it a mortgage, right? It's called different things in different places, okay? So let's say the lender comes in with 200 grand. Well, you have a difference of 25 grand plus you got to pay that lender an interest payment on his $200,000. And sometimes that lender wants an upfront fee for them just sitting down at the table, and there's like loan doc charges or something like, there's a bunch of different stuff. So let's say this lender brings in 200 grand, okay? So they're bringing in right about here, 200 grand. They're covering most of that bloody water for us, okay? Now there's still $25,000 that we somehow have to cover. Plus, let's say we're in a situation where there's about 10 grand in interest payments to this lender over the course of 6 months. So there's 10 grand more in interest payments. So now we're at 235, okay? But realistically, we want to look at how much blue ocean water is left, okay? Now this amount here that we just we need to cover now, all of a sudden, is the 25 difference here plus the additional 10 grand in interest payments that we have to pay to the first lender. Now, we can come up with that money out of pocket. It's like $35,000. If you have that money, you can put that into the deal, still make, $45,000. If you put in 35 grand, you get paid that back at the end of the day, plus you get 45 grand in profit. You're doubling your money in 6 months. That's a great deal. But if you're like me when I first started, or if you're like me when I've lost everything a couple times earlier on in my career, you got to have somebody, we don't have the money. We got to figure something out. That's where what's called gap funders come in. They bridge this gap, right, between what the lenders have covered and what we still need to pay, to cover here on the project cost, the difference here, plus the interest and all the fees for the lender, right, for the first lender. So Stacy is the lender that I'm kind of pitching this to. You might be watching it live, you might not. Now, Stacy, you had one question you asked me is, how much money do you need to come in with in order to be an investor? The answer to that question is, it depends on what kind of investor you're willing to be, okay? If you're willing to be this first investor, you're going to get paid, probably anywhere between 8 and 12% annually with interest-only payments, okay? But let's say you don't have 200 grand you're looking to put in a deal, or you don't have 225. There's a lot of investors out there that need to bridge that gap and take that additional, there's a difference here of 25 grand and plus another 10 grand in interest payments that you need to pay that first lender that brought their money to the table. So there's 35 grand that you need to cover the gap with. That's what's called a gap funder. A gap funder brings in the down payments and all the rest of the funds on the borrower's behalf. And they also get a lien on the property. But it's called a second position lien, a junior lien. So what that means is, in the case that the property goes into foreclosure, Like let's say I'm borrowing the 200 grand plus another 35 grand, bringing 2 lenders into the game, which is what I typically do actually. If I bring the 2 lenders into the game and I die, I pass away. I know you guys don't want me to die. Please don't wish that on me. If I die, if you wished it on me to die, then I'm going to haunt you. I promise. I could see who's out there wishing this on me. Let me take this notification off my phone. So something happens to me, right? I become a vegetable. I get struck by lightning on the freeway, right? It's morbid, but you need to be prepared for this. You need to be able to explain this to a lender. If something happens to me, or if I just don't make my payments back, the lenders have the ability to foreclose. But the thing is, the reason that this number is important and the reason that you're structuring things correctly is the first lender needs to get paid back in full before the second lender gets anything that's left over, okay? So if you're looking at, I don't know if I should do a new one or not. If you're looking at a property like this, it's riskier. Okay? You're still protected, but it's riskier, especially right when you first start off with the deal, to be a gap funder. Because if the property is not, at first you buy the property, let's say it's worth 220 grand, you get a discount, you buy it for $200,000. The first lender brings 200 grand, and then the second lender brings 200 or another 35 grand. So the total amount of loans combined is 235. But let's say the property is only worth 220 right when you buy it. Although it's bought at a discount, you're still underwater. So the first position lender needs to get their whole 200 grand up front, and then the second position lender gets everything that's left over. Now, fortunately, right, most when shit hits the fan in this business from a borrower standpoint, or if a borrower does something shady, typically it's later on in the process. They typically don't do something shady right when they buy the property, okay? Yeah, don't die. Yeah, my wife is on here. I promise I will never die. I don't know if you guys have seen Team America World Police. And by the way, if the kids are watching, I'm sorry if I drop an F-bomb. All right, so where was I at? I already talked about you, babe, how you lent me that money up front when we first started. So earlier on in the process, the gap funder is always in a riskier position because they get paid after the first position lender gets paid off all their money, okay? So that's how it goes. So that's why it's really important to understand how much potential is in this cup. What does it look like up to the brim? And how much pure blue water is here? Because if the second position lender covers this amount, right? This is all just scribbles now, but the first position lender covers right here, and then the second position lender covers this amount. You want to make sure that there's still potential blue water in the ocean, so everybody can get paid in a worst case scenario of you having to foreclose on the home, right? And so I typically don't like to teach and get this in depth because I know that's why I have a mentorship group, because a lot of people can look at things differently. A lot of people can get confused. And I need to have the ability to answer questions one-on-one because different people are different learners. This thing typically helps pretty well, but this is just black water now. I don't know what the hell to do. This is mud. But you want to make sure that there's still potential profit, and that's even more so why this resell number is super important. Now, is this making sense to you guys? Can you give me a thumbs up or like a yes? Can you just let me know that this is going? Good education, good. If you guys want to learn more about this, we go in depth. I break this whole thing down, not only how to get the lenders, how to find the lenders, how to get them battling each other to give you lower rates, how to network, what to say, scripts, how to say them, calculators so you're not messing up carrying the one and putting stuff incorrectly. We go super in-depth in the mentorship group. It's not free. There is an application process. We opened it up yesterday, actually on the live. I went public with it today. We've got a few, there's a limited amount of spots. We've got a few new Flip family members. Congratulations, you know who you are. Stacy, you are on this. Does this make sense to you? And do you, by any chance, want to get on and ask questions? If you want to, you can. If not, no big deal. If you want to, do the thing where you request to go on here. But remember, there's probably going to be 800 people that see this in the next 24 hours. So that's only a few. Okay, good. Now, does anyone have any questions? And if you need this, hit the link in my bio, theflipsecrets.com/mentor. There's an 8 or 10 question application. We review every application. If you just go in there and put, X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, we'll probably get back to you and say, hey, man, do you really want to be a part of this? But we'll review the application. Someone from my team will get in touch with you. If that's not for you, that's fine too. Hopefully you at least look at the numbers and the investing side of real estate a little bit differently, okay? No pressure, just 100K followers. Yeah, usually it's for lives, there's 1,000 people after 24 hours, maybe 2,000. And on the stories, there's a little bit more. But Yeah, it's not gonna be a full 100,000 people seeing you on here, Stacy, if you do jump on. So the gap funder part is what you're hung up on. Yeah, that's what a lot of people are hung up on, and we have a lot of experienced investors get into the group. My boy Eric Hunt, I don't know if you're on here or not, but he hit me up today. Look at my stories. He had flipped like 10 houses. He joined the group, and within 2 weeks, I worked with him. He put this little presentation, little strategy together, and he's buying deals. He now has the ability to borrow money, still make a really good profit, and do 2, 3, 4, 5 at a time, where previously he was limited because he was funding the whole thing himself. So I taught him not only how to structure these deals, we have the contracts that I've paid. I've had very expensive attorneys put together for me. I know what works, I know what doesn't work. I have scripts. We have that whole thing in the group. So if that's something you're looking into, the OPM side is what we lead with. It's something that's very important. And once you know how to structure the numbers, it's really easy also. Like if you know how to do these numbers and if this stuff made sense to you, you may be a good fit. And I'll tell you why. Because not only does this number dictate how much the lenders come in and pay and what the different profit margins are and all that kind of stuff and what the different interest payments are, but this number also dictates what we offer on a property, because we just work backwards. Hey, if I'm going to sell it, I know I'm paying a realtor, I know I'm paying closing costs. Okay, the house needs 20 grand worth of work. I also know that there's going to be closing costs and holding costs. Here's how much profit I want to make. Now I know what I can offer on it. And by the way, if you look at it a little bit differently, you can also program the MLS to automatically send you leads based on numbers rather than based on if a house has certain keywords. Now, keywords are important, right? If a house says TLC, typically at least the seller knows and they're representing that the house is beat up and that it needs TLC. And they're not saying, oh, look at this gem, it's close to shopping and the house is freaking leaning over. Like those ones, that they're doing whatever they can. They're desperate to get top dollar. But if someone's saying, look, calling all contractors, investor special, handyman special, bring your imagination. This house needs some work, but with some TLC, you can make it shine. Sometimes they're not priced right, but if they say stuff like that, you know that there may be a little bit of motivation behind a seller, or at least you know that they have a reasonable and realistic idea of what they're working with. They're not trying to, I was going to say something because they're not trying to take a piece of glass and tell you it's a diamond. You know what I mean? Okay, good. And you guys, if this makes sense to you and these numbers are backwards, that means your mind is working, because I know that, I'm talking and I'm answering questions. So that's the thing. Like, if you understand these numbers, I would invite you to at least apply for the mentorship group. Again, it's not free. This is probably the last time. It's $5,000. There are payment plans. There's a financing option. PayPal actually finances it. They approved our program where you don't have to pay them for like 6 months. There's a lot of pretty cool things in the group. There's a lot of people on the group that are here. Can you, all right, here. Listening and cleaning Ant City. All right, that makes sense. So your profit is less than 56 grand because you have to pay interest to number one. Yes. So let's say the interest to the first lender is $10,000. Okay, and I'm just giving hypothetical numbers. Or you can say, let's say it's 16 grand you're paying to the first lender. Well, now your profit's 40, but the second lender comes in with like 35 grand, and now all of a sudden you have 40 grand that you can split with them. Sometimes a gap funder is like, look, higher risk, 50-50, you're a brand new investor. That's typically, a lot of times you'll see like, hey, somebody wants a profit share, or let's say the gap funder says, look, I'm bringing in 35 grand. I want straight up 25% of my investment. So 35 grand at 25%, that's like 85, 88, 87.50, right? They want 87.50. If you got 40 grand of profit and this lender says, I want straight up 25%, and let's say it's between 8,500 and let's say it's 9 grand. I want 9 grand straight up on my money, whether it takes you 2 months or it takes you 6 months. It's like, okay, well, I'll take the other $31,000 because I had enough of this blue ocean water left in the cup, right? There's enough profit for me to do my thing. And if a gap funder comes in and they're saying, I want 50% of profit, I'll give you 35 grand, but I want 20 and you have 20. It's like, don't get hung up on that, because usually somebody's going to ask for that on your first deal. Okay, you're deemed a riskier investment if it's your first deal. But the fact that the money is available to you when you've never done a deal before, you don't have any experience, and you're broke, right? That's a good deal. The availability of money is more important than the cost of money when you're getting in the game, because after you've done one deal, by the way, you've made 20 grand, but now you have a track record. Now you have experience, now you have confidence. It's easier to put the dots together. The only way to get going in this game is to establish momentum. The only way to establish momentum is do deals, right? Get out there, put yourself out there. Have some failures, look dumb, right? I guarantee you, the first time you call an agent or a lender, and if you look dumb or you sound dumb or you say something or you hang up or you say something stupid, or let's say someone's having a bad day, they're like, I don't want to talk to you, you're a newbie. A lot of people will freeze up and roll over. They'll be like, okay, this isn't for me. Now, the people that do it big is like, okay, well, it's not going to get much worse than that, so let me hang up and call again. I used to do it, a quick story, I used to do advanced coaching for some of the seminar companies where they would pay, 50, 60 grand, and they'd fly me out, and I would be there for, 2 days. I would spend 8 hours one day, 8 hours the next day. Realistically, it was like 12 hours one day, 12 hours the next day. I was like, okay, let's sit here and let's call real estate agents locally, right? And I would coach them on it. This is why I've seen everything. But at that point, I had done like 500, 600 deals, right? And they're like, oh man, I just don't know if it'll work. I was like, look, I will take this exact script that we went over together, we role played with, and I will call these agents, and I'm going to use the exact script. And I would get on the phone, literally. I'd be like, hey, this is, I would say everything. They'd be like, sorry, that doesn't work, and never call me again. And I've done numerous deals. And so it's like, if you put it into perspective, some people have a bad day. Some people just give you weird feedback. Some agents just aren't good at business. They don't know where they don't see opportunity when it's out there. And so, it happens to everybody. It's just, you got to be willing to put in the work and get better and better. And typically, if you have the worst case scenario where someone's like, you're dumb, you're inexperienced, you're never going to make it, I never want to talk to you again, click. It's not going to get much worse, and you're still alive. I mean, it's like our mind plays tricks on us with fear. It's just the people that make it and the people that do big things are the ones that have fear, understand that there's no such thing as a perfect decision, and they're willing to take action anyway and just push through that type of bullshit, all right? The profit, so the profit is less than 56 grand. So you pay the first lender, and then whatever's left over, that's how much you have to get creative with the second lender. The second lender usually, it's riskier, right? But typically they get a little bit higher of an interest rate because of the risk, right? Some people call it a gap funder. Some people call it a second position lender. Some people call it equity funds, right? Equity I don't even know why they call it that. But when they say one of those key words, we're on the same page. Typically they understand what being a gap funder means, all right? All right. Can you be a real estate agent and an investor? Absolutely. Now, in different states, there's different rules for you. If you are, like, if I was flipping here in Temecula and I had a real estate license to practice in, California, which I don't. Maybe I'll get it someday. I don't know. I like doing the family thing. Although I'm late. I'm sorry, babe. I know you're watching. Real estate agents do hard work. They get to make more money. But if you love being a real estate agent, you're trying to get into the investing space, yeah, you could totally be an investor, right? Or a borrower and be doing the flip and being the agent. It's just different states require you to disclose that you have equity interest or ownership interest or any type of interest in the house selling, financial interest in the house selling for top dollar. So sometimes on the listing, sometimes on the public remarks that you'll see on Redfin and Zillow or on the regular listing on the MLS, and sometimes it's in the private remarks, listing agent has ownership interest in the property. That's the only thing, like just so everybody knows that it's the agent is working on their own behalf as well as in the best interest of the seller, okay? How do you know how much to estimate your lender interest fees will be? Typically the big lender, the first position lender, if you're looking at it like this, will have it published on a website. Typically it's anywhere between like 8% and 12% annually with interest only payments. And typically they have what's called points. Like 1 point would be 1% of the loan amount. So if they're lending you 200 grand, 1 point would be $2,000 and that's upfront. It's like the cost for them to even sit down at the table. It's just a matter of them nickeling and diming you, right? Some lenders have it, some lenders don't. Typically, as you get more experience in the business, those points go down, those fees go down, right? They usually charge you more because you're newer and therefore a riskier investment on paper. The money's still there. It's just a matter of how good of a deal you can get. Okay, now the second position lender, typically they're not like a big licensed company. Sometimes people like Stacy that are like, hey, look, I just want to make double digits. There's some of them that are seasoned lenders and they are gap funders and they try to find first timers. They're like, you got a good deal? It's all good. I want half the profit. And sometimes that's a good option if you don't have any other options. It's just a matter of being willing to get out there, put yourself out there, and go get what's yours. Don't wait for it to come to you, okay? All right, Stacy, listing, cleaning, Ant City. Would you jump on gap funding? What is the return on that? It just depends. I'll tell you what, if you invested with me, it'd be a lot less than investing with somebody brand new. We talk about that off record. So actually, we'll put it on record. I typically tell a gap funder, if somebody's talking about it, and At first, I was fine with family and friends. I try to stay away from the family and friends thing because there's nothing worse for me having to talk business after talking business all the time. Then I'm like, at a dinner, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, how's the investment going? Why didn't you call me back this week? Blah, blah, blah. Like that can be a little iffy sometimes. That's why I told you, Stacy, sometimes I'm a little hesitant to invest with friends or family members, but I still do both here and there. For me, the very first thing that I'm looking for when there's a gap funder is I want somebody that's going to let me do my thing. They don't need an update every 2 days. They don't want me to feel like I'm working for them, right? I want to feel like I have the ability to do my thing without somebody saying, well, man, I don't like those cabinets you put in, so I want you to change. Like, I don't want that because I don't want to disrespect my lender. I also know what works, right? So that's like the very first thing. The second thing, I typically offer gap funders 2 different options, okay? And I'll tell you what I typically do. I'll tell a gap funder, I'll say, hey, look, it depends on if you want a monthly interest payment or if you're cool with me paying you your interest at the very end when we sell it. They'll say, okay, what does that look like? If you want a monthly interest payment, I'll pay you 7% annual, okay? Now, if you're okay with me paying till the end, I usually say, I'll offer like 10% annual or 12% annual, right? Depending on what they're looking for. Some are like, no, I'm looking for 30% straight up return. Now, when I first started, I would pay that. I paid 25, 30%. I paid, profit sharing, all that kind of stuff. But now I'm like, look, here's the 2 options. I give the 2 options. I'm fine with paying a monthly interest if I get it super low at like 6 or 7%. And I'll always put that out there. And typically they say, no, I'll take the higher amount. I'm fine with waiting for 6 months to get my 35 grand back where I can make, double the amount. I'm trying to kind of box them into responding to me with, hey, I'll let the interest defer. Because if someone lets the interest defer, realistically, the first position interest that you're paying every month, they're getting paid on a monthly basis, right? But the second position is paying the first position. And you're not paying the second position until, the second lender until you close. So that's realistic. You're not putting any money out of pocket as long as you stay on budget, okay? I get it. Hell yeah. Hey, if you guys get this, you might want to consider applying for the group. Limited amount of spots. Link in bio, theflipsecrets.com/mentor. We've got people making big waves, making big moves in the group. And I love doing it. It's kind of my passion. So what about if the contractor took too long to finish the project? Now, if you're paying the contractor in reimbursements rather than giving them money up front, if the contractor's taking too long, you can fire them without them having all the leverage because they've taken half the budget and they're moving at a snail's pace, right? My neighbor, and Alan, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, dude, but so a neighbor of mine, he did this big renovation thing on his house, okay? And I think it's like a $40,000 project, and the contractor took like 18 grand up front. I said, dude, don't forward the money. He's like, no, it's all good. We're protected with a contract. The contract was supposed to take 8 weeks. The dude took like 5 months and still didn't finish. He had to hire someone else, but he was limited with what he could do to the contract because even though the contractor violated the contract and was taking 5 times as long, the contractor had the money, right? So the contractor was dictating the moves and dictating, there's contractors out there that'll do that. Not all of them, not even most of them. I believe there's way more good contractors than bad ones. But if the contractor's taking too long, but your contract has you paying them in reimbursements, you can fire the contractor. They didn't perform on their contract. That's part of the business. Some contractors don't want to do it. But there's a specific script that we go through in the mentorship group if you are looking into getting that on how you nip that in the ass before you even get into it. There's specific scripts, certain things you tell them, certain ways that you position yourself, and of course, a certain contract that you have where everything's put out there up front. I would prefer to put everything out there, put all the cards on the table, be completely transparent up front, because even if someone's a great contractor, if they don't know that I'm expecting to pay them in reimbursements and we don't handle that right from the get-go, I would rather a great contractor walk if they can't work with my payment schedule than us like get into a weird situation where we agree to it, they start the job and they're like, I want 10 grand right now. And it's like, I already told the other contractors, no, you should know. I thought you were investor friendly. No, let's just nip that in the ass right in the get-go. And sorry for saying ass, but, okay. All right. Who buys the appliances, tiles, flooring? I have the contractor do all of that. A lot of times if you're buying, and I've done it before both ways, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of liability as the investor if you're buying the materials, because you buy the materials, they're not installed yet. Contractor could run with them. The materials could get ripped off from storage or from the house. I mean, that's something that you got to look at. Also, there's like a blurred line in liability if whether a contractor is acting as a general contractor or just like a laborer if you actually go in and buy the appliances rather than the contractor. So I have them buy the appliances, and once they're installed, they take pictures, video walkthrough, and send me an invoice. And I make sure everything looks right, and then I send it to the big lender, and they make sure everything looks right. And that's when the big lender sends the dough either to me to give the contractor or sends it directly to the contractor. It's backwards. I know. All right, how do you find these lenders? Sorry if you answered already. Well, friends, family. I'm big on online. Like, there's some very specific strategies that I have on finding lenders online, reverse engineering some of the chat groups. There's a lot of like online networking groups. Facebook, I mean, I have lenders that I've met through Instagram since doing this stuff, but Instagram's a little bit different of a beast. I think it's got potential in the future. Facebook groups has been my best, but I found lenders on biggerpockets.com, Craigslist, Facebook, meetup.com, a lot of the different websites. It's just a matter of getting involved. I think going to real estate investor clubs is a really good way to meet different lenders, people that are in the game. I like taking landlords and converting them into lenders, because landlords typically get pissed and tired of being landlords, but they still expect to make money on their real estate. And I say, well, how would you like to make money on real estate? It's secured by a lien on the property, and you don't got to deal with shitty tenants. I don't typically say shitty tenants, but you don't got to deal with the tenants. You don't have to deal with the BS. I'll do the work, right? And that's usually what gets that conversation started. I've had really good luck with that. All right, push the board over to the right, please. My right or yours? I think I'm catching up. Sorry. Can you see this? Hopefully you can. Take a screenshot if you want. I will upload this and switch it around, kind of like I did today for yesterday's one. I'll put it up to YouTube and let you guys know about it tomorrow. But feel free to take a look at that if you want. Screenshot it if you want. Get my face in there if you want. This should be the background of your phone. Get it? Get it? All right, cool. Wait, so you could have two lenders for one property? Yeah. Actually, sometimes with this big loan, the $200,000 loan on this hypothetical scenario, sometimes there's like 4 different lenders that all put their money together on that one. And then on the small loan, there's like 2 different lenders that put their money together. I've had it where there's like 7 or 8, all in the same fund, right? A bunch of dudes that golf together in Southern California, one of my best lenders. Sometimes there's like 6 of them that all just put their money together into the same pot, you know? So it's interesting. Can you just repeat the 2 options you give your lenders, how they get paid? I typically say, I say, look, do you want to get paid monthly or do you want to get paid, I call it deferred payment or accrued interest, accrued ACCRUED. It pretty much means you can delay payment until the end of the game. I say I pay monthly payment, I give them a low amount, and then when I say, but if you want to wait till the property sells or if I refinance the property, you can get paid this amount. I usually make that a higher amount, but in the grand scheme of things, let's say somebody gives 35 grand, right? At 10%, or let's say 12% annual, that's $350 a month. $350 a month times 6 months is what, $2,000 of, it's like you're talking about very small differences in your profit as the borrower, but to somebody that's a lender, right? Somebody making 15% as opposed to 10%, that's huge, right? So something that a big number difference like that, that an investor will make, they'll be making 15% instead of 10% by not taking a monthly interest payment. I mean, that's double the amount of, or not double, 150% of the amount of return as opposed to the 10% return. And for us, I mean, it's a difference. It's like making 41 grand instead of 43 grand, right? Like, I'm still putting $0 out of my own pocket. You know what I mean? So you don't get caught up in the dollars and cents when you first get into the game. All right. I get it, but I'm new. I just want to think about it. You mean that? Oh, you're probably talking about mentorship group. Yeah, you can think about it. Mentorship group, this is my thing. It's my moral obligation to teach this stuff. If you're not into it, though, I don't mind. That's cool. I'm going to still keep doing these. Yep. Cool. I am caught up on the comments. Stacy, do you have questions from a lender's perspective? Anyone else have questions? I'm waiting for you guys to type those in. theflipsecrets.com/mentor. You can get into this game even if you have a full-time job. This is like a side hustle if you do it correctly. If you have, agents selling the property for you, you have contractors working for you, you have lenders bringing the funds in. Like, there's a lot of people working at the same time. You're a project manager. As long as you do it with discipline, I mean, it doesn't take that much time to do. Now, when you first start out, you may just be emotionally just overwhelmed, and that takes some time to calm down and you might have to have a glass of wine at night or something like that to unwind. But let's say stay-at-home mom, right? You could do this a couple hours a day. You got a 9 to 5. You could do this as a side income, right? I know people that do this with self-directed IRA accounts. It's their retirement accounts, flipping houses. If you're an experienced investor, I can help you do more deals with less money out of your pocket. If you want to get into the game brand new. Now, if you don't have much money, I do need to tell you, you need to be willing to hustle. Because typically, if you don't have a ton of money to put in and you're taking gap funders and you've never done a deal, you really have to prove to somebody, not that you like have financial wherewithal, but you need to prove to someone that you care, that you're willing to put yourself out there, you're willing to put your name behind something, you're willing to pick up the phone. And even if you can't answer, you don't need to be perfect in this game to borrow money. Usually if you have all the answers when you're talking to somebody, nobody ever has all the answers, by the way, but if you pretend like you have all the answers, like sometimes that goes against you. Lenders typically, like my staple lender line, if I'm pitching a lender, right? And by pitching a lender, I mean if I'm trying to get somebody to invest in my deal, I say, listen, I'm not perfect. This project's not going to go perfect. My job is to make it go as perfect as possible, but let's be real. I'm buying a beat up ass house and I'm trying to do good things with it. This is our budget. I hope to hit that budget. Here's our time frame. I hope to get within that time frame, but stuff happens, okay? And I need you to understand that it's not going to go perfect. You got to give me a little bit of room to be able to do my thing and make sure that I direct the ship when the storms come. But one thing that I'm going to tell you, whether things are going perfectly or if shit hits the fan, and I don't typically say shit hits the fan, I'm talking to you like you're one of my friends, right? But if stuff hits the fan, or if things are going perfectly, what I can let you know, what I can guarantee, this is the only guarantee I can give you, is I'm going to be the first person to call you. If stuff hits the fan, you will be the first one to receive a call from me either way. And if things are going well, I'm going to let you know things are going well. But if things are going bad, not only am I going to tell you what's going on, but I'm also going to tell you what my plan is to fix it, okay? Is that fair enough? Right? And like I put it out there, look, man, it's not going to go well. I don't have all the answers. Who knows what's going to happen? But if stuff hits the fan, you better believe I'm going to be out there trying to figure out what's going on and coming up with solutions, right? We get paid based on the problems we solve. Okay, I'm a firm believer in that. When I first doing my first deals, like things were going weird all the time and I was just freaking out like, oh, it's not going perfectly. The dude at the seminar said he's never lost money. It's never gone bad. It's like, that guy was lying. He was trying to sell the dream and that's cool. Like he's doing the sales thing. But you guys, in this business, things go sideways all the time, right? You just need to make sure you know where the goal is. You think that the ship's going to go like this, but realistically it goes like this, right? This is just what happens, right? You just need to make sure that it's like a sailboat. You need to make sure you're adjusting the sail so you go with wherever the wind's taking you. And ultimately, it may not be there as quick or as pretty as you like, but you're still going to get there as long as you don't give up and you don't just roll over if some type of drama or conflict comes up, okay? Okay, this about real estate. Absolutely, this is about real estate. This is about mindset too. I feel like this is more about mindset than real estate. Finding good contractors, another live for another day. Join my mentorship group if you want to learn really how to find contractors. All right, I'm good. Going to go over it with Ben. We'll talk to you. Oh yeah, the marriage retreat. Cool. Yeah, no worries, man. Stacy. How much money would you need to start? If you're getting in my mentorship group, it's $4,997. This is the last time it's going to be like that, and I think this is the last time it's going to be available to general public. But I have a 6-payment plan of $997. I have a 2-payment plan of $27.47. I have a 14-day guarantee, so if you don't like it, you can consume 2 weeks of content and just bounce out on it. I'll give you your money back. That's all good. If that's what you're trying to do, it's not a good fit anyway. In order to get into, and also there's PayPal credit where PayPal finances the whole thing. Apply if that's something you're even interested in. But in order to get a start into the game, like I said, you don't have to have money. You can be broke like I was when I first started. I had like $800. But what you do have to do is be willing to work, being willing to hustle, being willing to do something new. Because I'm willing to assume that if you're broke, first off, poor is a permanent thing. Poor is a state of mind. Broke is a temporary thing, okay? But if you're broke, I'm willing to bet you probably made some decisions that made you broke, right? There was something that happened. So understand that if you're trying to do something that increases your financial situation, you're probably going to have to do some things that are different than what you've done in the past. I don't mean to be offensive. I'm just being straight up. Every time I've done, found myself in a shitty situation, it's like, okay, yeah, I look back, I did this, and that led to me being in this situation, right? So You can look at it as a failure or embarrassment, or you can look at it as, okay, I know what's going on. I know where I'm at. I know where I want to go. So now there's a clear path. Yeah, it sucks being broke, but look at it as temporary. It's not poor, it's broke, okay? If you're broke, just understand you're going to have to outwork everyone else and have a smart game plan in order to do that. You have to work with intention and you have to hustle. If you're not willing to hustle, if you're not willing to do stuff you haven't done before, it's probably not a good fit. That's with anything new. Like if you're not willing to put in a little bit of work, get outside of your comfort zone, it's probably not going to work out for you. And that's just the uncomfortable truth, right? I said I won't. I talk to you then. No business pleasure. Yeah. All right. Looking at flipping foreclosures. I'm flipping foreclosures all the time. I got 10 seconds left, you guys. It was wonderful. If you're interested in the mentorship group, hit theflipsecrets.com/mentor. Link in my bio. God bless you guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.